Hey kids, you are about to listen to a comedy podcast. That means that none of this is medical advice. If you need medical advice or medical care, please contact your doctor.
Welcome to the Jock podcast featuring Dr. London Smith. The only podcast that will not stop until we've touched as many lives as coronavirus. Introducing your host, Dr. London Smith.
Hello, and welcome to the Jock podcast, where we discuss fitness and health and how to incorporate our modern understanding of science and medicine into our daily lives, but without it being so boring. I'm your host, drlondonsmith.com. I would like to begin by apologizing to our listeners. We've received some feedback about the excessive amount of technical medical terms that I've been using, such as retrospective cohort study and a lady in the house say, okay, I see you, boo. So I will try to temper my terminology to a simpler one in the future. Here to help with that is our producer, Cameron.
That's a spicy meatball!
Okay, Cameron, you're... It seems like your accent changed a little bit.
Yeah, it changed a little bit. Let me, say, you gotta say something spicy first. Say something spicy.
Okay, so Cameron is so dedicated to making sure that our podcast stays relevant.
Yes.
That when he heard the phrase sun time, fun time, he began waking up before dawn and taking carefully timed measurements of things that he deemed to be fun using a stopwatch.
That's a spicy meatball!
Right?
Okay, so that was spicy enough?
I think so. You're talking about me. I zoned out for the rest of it. But let me get my accent going.
That's a spicy meatball!
Yeah. Is that Spanish?
That's a spicy meatball Spanish?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna fault a Spaniard for saying that, I guess.
Okay.
I can't say that's a spicy meatball is usually associated with Spain, but if that's what you want to...
Okay, yeah, sorry. It's just accents. Sometimes I get them confused.
Oh, yeah, no. I just...
and I wasn't sure if I had the sort of... I don't want to say stereotype, but like the classically associated...
That's a spicy meatball! That's a spicy meatball!
Yes.
Okay. So that's pretty good, but I guess we can go ahead and move on from there then.
So...
If that's all right with you.
But let me explain myself.
Okay.
I have been sitting for now like 700 episodes or however many episodes we've done of this show.
Yes.
And I've watched DJ Dylan have so much fun with these kooky sounds and these crazy sound effects and these boings and these ruh-rohs and these like zaps and all these noises that he makes. So I have hacked into the system. And now DJ Dylan, I'm sorry, you're not the only one making zoink sounds. Aww. I get to also make sounds. Unfortunately, I have not figured out how to do more than one sound.
That's a spicy meatball!
Dylan has been able to figure out like 100, and I'm getting there. I think maybe after a couple years of training and learning, I'll be maybe able to get to DJ Dylan's number.
Nope.
But since I'm a beginner right now, it's just the one sound.
Well, okay, so the listeners can't see this, but...
That's a spicy meatball!
So Cameron doesn't have like a normal soundboard going. He has, it looks like one of those telephone operators, old-timey things where you have to plug it into the wall. Every time you do a sound effect, you have to run over and plug it in here and there, and then put on the headphones.
Well, and there's a crank as well.
Yeah, and you seem to, I guess it doesn't really pick up as much, but you seem to be talking to someone to make sure that it's going through every time.
Yeah, I'm like, operator here, play the sound effect. And they're like, Roger. And then they do it on their system. Then I plug it back into the soundboard that I've rigged up, which then exports it to DJ Dylan, who then plugs it into the sound effect speakers.
Yes.
Yeah, and look, this isn't really...
That's a spicy meatball!
This isn't really my field so much, so I can't like speak too definitively about it, but I feel like there surely there's an easier way to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think the technology is getting there.
Yes.
And a lot of times we look at future technology and we watch TV shows and it's like, oh, they have hover cars, Back to the Future 2. They've got hoverboards that everyone's flying around in. And you'd think, why don't we have that now? But sometimes it takes a while for the technology to catch up to the vision.
Okay, yeah, and once again,
And so the technology that you're describing of being able to play a sound effect without as many inputs and outputs and exports and imports and the soundboard system and the operator on the other side that we're having to pay full time. Yeah, of course I'd love for it to be easier than that, but the technology hasn't reached that point.
Okay. Yeah, and okay, and I guess I'll have to trust you on that because once again, you provide the equipment, and so this is all it's all kind of outside of my realm. But speaking of whom, also with us is Digital in the house. All the lady in the house say, "Okay, I see you, boo." All the lady in the house say, "Okay, I see you, boo." All the lady in the house say, "Okay, I see you, boo."
That's a spicy meatball. Spicy meatball. Spicy meat.
And later, Cameron tells me that we can expect a special guest. So look forward to that.
That's right, Dr. London.
Before we move on, I would like to address a bit of listener feedback. I found this note written across the wrappings of a body in the morgue. The note reads, quote, "She is not invited to the potluck. She was a very nasty woman," end quote. So first of all, I would like to thank this listener so much for such an insightful question here on the Jock podcast. To answer your question, I would not think that this deceased individual's opinion would have much, like a significant impact on the guest list for an upcoming potluck. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, well, because if someone isn't alive anymore, then their opinion on who should be the present company at an outdoor gathering, it doesn't seem like it would be super
Right, but they just passed away, right? I mean, if they're in the morgue. So couldn't they have made this decision before they died? You're saying after they died, and if they had special requests about the invite list, then their friends and family would just be like, oh, they're dead now. We shouldn't respect what they had said when they were alive. Oh, we can invite whoever we want. They said to not invite someone. Well, now we can invite them finally because they're dead. That's how you see this situation playing out?
It just seems like it's such a casual social but yeah, you're right. Maybe I don't understand the full context. And maybe this note was also written to the deceased. And then this could be a very insensitive way to tell them that they are not invited. That's the other interpretation I had for that note.
That could be true. I mean, did they look like a huge pain?
They looked pale.
Yes.
But
yeah.
But I expect that from the deceased usually.
Yes.
But did it look like that the kind of guy who would like come up to you and like no matter what you're talking about with your friends, he tries to make it about his job? He's like, "Oh, that reminds me the other day at work. My boss Phil, he's the head of the copying division or whatever." You know what I mean? Because if he looks like that kind of guy, yeah, you don't want him at a potluck.
Yeah, I guess
Trust me, I've been there.
Yeah, well, I guess for me, I don't know how to pick out that kind of person, that kind of individual. Just
because you don't think, Dr. London,
Okay, well, and that's
You have no discernment.
like, well, anyway, to this listener, in any case, thank you for listening.
That's a spicy meatball.
Now for today's medical topic, adenocarcinoma. Adenocarcinoma is one of the lung cancers in the group of non-small cell lung cancers and makes up about 35% of all lung cancers. So it's actually the most common type.
Wow.
And non-small cell cancer is often insidious, so it'll produce no symptoms usually until the disease is well advanced. One thing that sets...
Yeah, but only 35% of it will do that, right?
So it's just this particular subset within that category. So it's not just 35, it's more than 35%, because there are other ones.
Okay, but it's 35% of that subset, right?
Yeah, adenocarcinoma is, yes.
Yes.
Okay. But it's 35% of what you were just saying.
Yes, this particular cancer, it makes up 35% of all lung cancers.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Does that make sense then to you? Okay.
Yeah. I got it.
So one thing that sets adenocarcinoma apart from other lung cancers is that it has less association with smoking. So...
But only a 35% less association with smoking, right?
I don't have the exact numbers on me for the degrees, but basically this is the cancer that...
Well, I think using basic logic and common sense, we can surmise that it's only like a 35, like smoking is only 35% bad.
Okay, so this one is not associated with smoking. This is like the one lung cancer I've talked about so far where it's not associated with smoking. So the 35% would be like the less relevant part in that regard.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So like the 65% that's remaining, most of that will have, some association with smoking. So do you see how that's...
Okay.
Yeah,
it's like 35%. It's like 30. It's like maybe like 6 cigarettes out of a pack.
Okay, and so the thing about this particular lung cancer
That's a spicy meatball.
is the lack of not the lack, but it's significantly less associated with smoking. So this one you can get kind of regardless of that.
And I think I think like the 72s are like maybe like 35% ish of the 100s, the cigarette sizes.
I feel like you're just you found a number that you liked and you're just trying to apply it to any factoid about
I'm a math
cigarettes.
guy. I'm a math guy. I get it. You're a science guy. I'm a math guy. We all have our different strengths. So I'm just trying to translate it to a language that I understand.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the most common signs and symptoms of lung cancer include cough, chest pain, shortness of breath, coughing up blood, wheezing, hoarseness, recurring infections such as bronchitis and pneumonia. You can also have constitutional symptoms like, weight loss and loss of appetite. The weight loss especially is one of those things that you look for cancer. You can have signs of metastasis, and that's whenever the cancer is spread from its original location. So that can include bone pain.
So,
what was that?
Well, the list of symptoms you're talking about, or the signs that you have it, obviously only 35% of that is going to apply to each individual person. So do they get to pick and choose, or is that something that it's kind of thrust upon you? So, because like out of that list, I would probably choose coughing because I think sometimes coughing would kind of feels good.
You feel the
but
relief?
like I wouldn't, but I wouldn't pick metastasis or whatever you just said just because it's too hard to pronounce. So I'd like to get that one taken care of.
Yeah. So most of your question doesn't make that much sense to me because the 35%, once again, is not a number that you can just apply to any aspect of the disease.
Then why are we using the number? Then why are we using the number at all?
Well, so it did apply to one part. So the fact that adenocarcinoma makes up...
Just watching you squirm in your seat trying to answer this question, this simple question.
So we'll just move
that's
on.
undoing all of your medical knowledge because you don't know how to answer something as philosophical as what I'm putting down.
Yes.
It just makes me so happy.
So
Everything I've said about you on this podcast, I'm watching happen before my eyes. I'm watching you crumble,
So
and I'm eating it up.
some of the
Yum, yum, yum.
some of the other signs of metastasis are spinal cord impingement, neurological problems like headache, weakness, or numbness of limbs. You can have dizziness and seizures. But to diagnose,
Ooh.
right. So to diagnose,
That's
physical exam, complete
Nice,
blood
they made
count are
the
taken,
ball.
and then usually chest X-ray is the first test to be performed. And imaging may show a peripherally located pulmonary nodule or mass. You can have mediastinal widening, atelectasis, hilar enlargement, or pleural effusion. Previous chest X-ray is super helpful to check for the rate of lesion growth. So if you can find that, that's what a given physician will usually look for. And there are many methods of confirming diagnosis, and that's determined by, I guess, presentation and location of the lesion.
And percentages.
To some percentages, sure. So that can bronchoscopy, sputum cytology, mediastinoscopy, thoracentesis, thoracoscopy, and transthoracic.
Well, what I think is interesting about a lot of what we're talking about is, we had mentioned before the 35 percentile, but now if we also think about the other side of that, which is going to be the 65 percentile, which I think a lot of times in a lot of science and a lot of statistics, you focus on the one without focusing on the other, which makes up the whole. So then 35 and 65, what is that? That makes up the 100. And if you think of like 100% of cancers being therefore pushed by the smoke from the Marlboro Menthol Smooth 100s, which is those are the tallest cigarettes.
Yes.
Then suddenly, I mean, you have to question if that 35% is not something closer to maybe 40 or 45.
Based on the name of a cigarette, you think that the statistic would change. Okay, well,
Again, I'm a math guy. I'm just translating this to a language that makes sense to me.
yeah, and admittedly, what you're saying doesn't really make much sense to me. But in any case, so along with diagnosis, you also have to stage the cancer to find out the extent of the spread of the adenocarcinoma, and that guides treatment. So use chest CT scan, and that's the standard for staging the lung cancer, and that will take into account the size of the tumor, the spread of it to regional lymph nodes, whether the cancer has metastasized. The main treatment options for all of the non-small cell lung cancers are going to be surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, generally speaking. But most lung cancers cannot be cured with current treatments. So skilled palliative care is what's going to be very important for the treatment of adenocarcinoma.
But only 35% as important as if you were using sort of a different methodology.
I think if you were to use a different methodology than, say, I guess, Western medicine,
Ooh.
then I'm not...
That's
You just fell for
I
it.
say make the ball.
Oh, did I?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, well, anyway, I guess we can move on from there. All right, Cameron, you said that we have a guest today?
That is right, Dr. London. We have a very, very special guest. I know I've said that a few times, but I think special can be a wide enough umbrella to include more than just one person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, like the handicapped sometimes, or like any sort of, just any selective individuals.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I was just thinking like Shaq special. He's really tall.
Okay.
And he can dunk like great.
Yeah, okay, so the handicapped and Shaq are the two
It's
that
not
we think
Shaq.
of.
Shaq is not our guest, but I'm just trying to establish that just because our guest is special doesn't mean that Shaquille O'Neal isn't special. You know?
Because you've been hinting at a Shaq type.
Yeah, I have been
Building up to this.
Yeah, I have been throwing around a lot of clues around the office. I've been like throwing paper balls into a trash can and being like Shaq, even though like you
And
usually say Kobe.
Can't wait for our guest.
But can't wait for our guest, our surprise guest. but it is not
Yeah.
Shaq. I really want to make that clear.
Okay. All right, and welcome. Oh, is that? I do recognize this guest, so it's a returning guest.
That's right.
Hello,
Rev J.
Rev J. Yeah.
Well, hello.
Hey.
And hello.
How are we doing,
Hi. So,
No.
sir? It's so good. Even though I see you every single morning, it's so good to see you here now with us.
Yes, well, I can only say likewise. When you say that, it's all of those things that you were just saying. It feels great to be here, and I'm just so glad to be a guest and for you to have me on here. Thank you.
yeah. So
No.
I'm not exactly sure why you brought.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure why. I mean, this is no offense intended, Rev J, but so normally this is a medical education podcast, and last time you were on here, if I remember right, you brought up I don't remember if it was some sort of, we had to recite a lot of things in order to get the correct balance in our chi or something, and then you played a song on guitar.
Yes.
Right. It's funny you should mention that. The last time that, we met up and I was on the show and all those things happened, I left from there. I felt just a kind of a calling to go off into the wilderness. And so I just started walking and I started wandering for days and eating just nuts and berries, basically. And throughout that time of isolation, social isolation and distancing, I came to a place where I wanted to just renounce all types of physical possessions or physical material anything. So
wise.
I stripped off all my clothes, even my own name. I denounced it, and I was me, but now I am we, and I don't even have a name anymore. And then I eventually found my way out of the forest, and I ended up right back in the parking lot outside your studio. And then I walked back in. The receptionist was very nice, and she sent me up here, and here I am.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
right. And on this journey, I've actually sort of been able to bond with, well, the artist formerly known as Rev J, who is now a nameless entity.
Yes.
Because during this journey, he was sending me notes and letters and sort of being, I want to say, sort of a mentor towards me, right? I mean, wouldn't you say, sir?
Yeah. I forgot that I did bring one thing with me, which was a notepad and a pen that was clipped to the notepad, so it counts as one item. But I feel like you're allowed to always bring one item with you when you're just, you have to have something just for emergencies, and that's what I felt was the most important item for me to bring, so I could communicate with my mentee, Cameron, any advice I could give
Well,
him.
and
like
that was one of
pigeons,
the
or
that was one of the main things that I had learned, which I thought was really special, was the importance of getting rid of everything. But I mean, you got to have one thing.
Right. That's where it's a little bit of a
And
back and
that's-
forth. Sometimes I'm the mentor, sometimes he pushes back, and I'm like, okay, you got a
Like
point.
you might have noticed, Dr. London, that I personally have not gotten rid of my clothes or rid of my possessions or anything, and that's because I keep telling myself, as I'm about to throw away my mattress, as I'm about to throw away my shoes, I say, yeah, I got to get rid of everything, and then when I reach the trash can, I'm like, but I got to keep one thing, and then I just kind of repeat that cycle for everything
Okay.
I own.
because I know you.
One thing leads to
Yep.
another.
Like eventually, I saw you just standing outside of your house and pointing at the house and saying one thing.
Yeah. Well, that was different. I was saying one thing. I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try.
and how hard
Yeah.
you try.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
that was
another
another
point of
thing
bonding for
that
you.
the artist formerly known as Rev J had taught me, was the lyrics to that Linkin Park song.
Yes.
Okay.
I tried so hard
Yes.
So wise.
and got so far.
So wise.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. This
Was
is my
that-
this is my telephone board. Let me. I gotta unplug this thing and then plug that thing in. I gotta switch this.
There's
thing.
like 5,000 wires.
Yeah, I gotta
That's-
switch this board with this. Okay, and okay. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You sound very. You sound sort of far away.
I feel far away. Do you recognize my voice?
Yeah. I'm sorry. This okay, this is from much longer ago. Is this Ravenhole, a previous guest?
Ravenhole.
This is an apparition of Ravenhole. I've done many changes since then. And as I can see from my current listening to your podcast that I have so dutifully subscribed to in the absence of my mentee, Buddy Beer Hole of Raven. Do you remember that name?
Yeah, it's almost like an old specter. It's something that's haunted me to this day. I haven't thought about it in ages. What does it mean?
It means that you've lost your way, Cameron.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about it means like for yourself.
No,
Sir
Cameron.
Sir Ravenhole, or what should I call you now, Sir Ravenhole?
I primarily just go by the crevasse.
You're just by the crevasse now?
The
The
crevasse.
crevasse. Okay.
Can we remind our listeners of what we talked about last time a bit?
Well, you see, it's a long story, but really, I'm sorry. I have a distortion in whatever wavelength of trauma I think I'm experiencing as a result of seeing 11 months. It has been about 11 months in this human experience of feeling detached from a moment that we had a long time ago where we had a call about 12 months ago when you and I met in a Kroger and you started taking my medicine.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. We had met in maybe the parking lot of a Kroger, or maybe I was dumping over the like kind of big thing of like large rubber balls that sometimes they have in the toy section, which isn't really a section because it's a Kroger. It's more like one small part of an aisle. But anyway, we had met, and then you had introduced me to some of your really cool medicine, which sort of changed the way I thought and the way I did things, and whether or not I could stand up, and whether or not like different noises made me laugh, things like that.
Yeah, it kind of, so I guess I can give a brief recap for our listeners. So basically, Ravenhole, which was the name that you were hesitant to give a name, not unlike the artist formerly known as Rev J here. And then you described some vision or something that you had had while on a drug trip. And you settled, I think, because you went into a hole as a raven. You settled on the name Ravenhole. Yeah, and then I think Cameron was attempting to adopt a similar name as well.
He was.
But in any case,
He was. And he no longer seems to follow the way.
Oh, so wait, so
You
sir,
stopped calling. You stopped calling. You stopped needing the smiley emoji candy. And you found this artist formerly known as Rev J. And
okay, I see what's
have
going
to
on
say,
now.
I called because I too went on a wilderness journey of the soul. And in this journey, I met what I believe to be Rev J in the forest. but I cannot say that I'm sure. Rev J, was that you?
Was this by an old oak tree? And there was a boulder that looked a little bit like Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
Yes, with the skirt.
It was blowing up.
That was it. Blowing up.
Oh, so it doesn't look like Marilyn Monroe's face. It's a boulder that looks like the iconic image of her standing over a grate and her dress blowing up. That's what the boulder looks like. That's very detailed. That's beautiful.
Super specific.
It's at this point I knew I was standing in some magical space where I was about to meet a spirit from the spirit realm. And it had the same countenance as the voice that I can hear right now.
Oh, so possibly Crevasse and the artist formerly known as Rev J, you two may have met before.
I think our paths may have crevassed.
We must have, because there is no coincidences in this life. And I tell you what, when you take a whole bag of my medicine just out of pure desire to meet a kindred spirit, things happen.
Yeah, I couldn't put it in better words.
So, Sir the Crevasse, I'm really sorry, but just to clarify here, you're upset with me because I'm listening to the artist formerly known as Rev J rather than you?
I can't say that I'm really upset. It's part of the distortion of recognizing that a kindred spirit could be more inclined to give mentorship than I. And that distortion brought me here today, brought me to this call, because I need a formal, I think I need a diagnosis from Dr. London Smith. I've come here in an attempt to understand what is this distortion that I'm feeling.
Okay. So this sounds like something that's not too difficult to some extent. So the first thing we do whenever someone comes to, say, the ER with a complaint of
That's a spicy meatball!
Yeah, so whenever they come to the office or the ER or whatever, first thing we rule out is, drugs. So you say that you ate a bag of your smiley emoji drugs, which, as I recall, had a heavy influence on yourself and Cameron. It was a drug trip. So if you overdosed, if you took a lot of that substance, then I would imagine that's probably the reason for what you are calling a distortion. You overdosed potentially. You took too much.
But in the context of this, I'm feeling unsure of myself, knowing that my former buddy beer Hole of Raven has moved on, and I think that I'm experiencing some type of reactive ripple and I can't say what. I have no understanding of this space.
Jealousy?
Can I defend myself just a little bit here?
Yes.
Sir Ravenhole, Sir the Crevasse, sir, I did stop listening to you so I could follow the footsteps of the artist formerly known as Rev J. But that was only because I ran out of your smiley emoji drugs. And I didn't know how to refill because the subscription form online is not working.
I had to go on another trip and things got really confusing.
Right.
I forgot.
So a drug trip?
I really don't like the association with narcotic the whole language around that. I really think it was more of an existential, extraterrestrial intertwining of my being. So let's please keep it. Let's please keep it, relatively soft on me, because I feel like I'm going through something. I just need some support. And what I experienced in the forest with Rev J seemed like some form of like a battle, but I don't think it was a bad battle. Like, it felt like a big hug with around the Marilyn Monroe tree. And I just want to confirm,
Like a good old.
like a yeah. And now that we're here, I think the universe has brought us together to reconcile this ripple, this distortion in my soul.
Well, I would say maybe we should not be asking questions to Dr. London, who, as we all know, is useless and doesn't know what he's talking about in terms of health. But maybe you could get some help from the artist formerly known as Rev J here. Maybe we can all help each other a little bit. I mean, the nameless specter formerly known as Rev J, do you have any words of your divine wisdom to give to the crevasse?
Well, I do actually. There's it comes to mind a song, an ancient song that was sung to me when I was in the forest. It might have been during our encounter, possibly, but it's something like, it's the whole of the raven, it's the eye of the crow, and I believe I can fly.
Wow.
I'm sorry, dude. That sounds like a combination of the song "I the Tiger" with some lyrics replaced, and then just "I Believe I Can just two different tunes. So
That's a spicy meatball.
but I guess
I
mean, sure. Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt.
Oh no, that's all I remember actually. But I think I know, they sound similar. I can see what you're talking about, but I think this was something different.
Okay. And
I mean, yeah, the crevasse, did that do anything for you?
It did. I do believe that we experienced an interlocking of our spirits around that song, like two little imps or elves, like trotting around the tree. Do you remember when we became like little fawns marching around the tree, and then like intermingled into like the shape of a dove, and that dove like morphed into a raven that went through the hole?
Yes, and I was the left wing and you were the right wing, and together we soared round and round the tree and around Marilyn Monroe, and then we went straight in. We went into a hole.
Upper skirt.
Well, I don't remember where the hole was, but it was in that grove somewhere.
It was Cameron's hole. I believe. I'm speaking kind of prophetically, but I think it was Cameron's hole.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because it started with me, and then it led to you, and now I'm fully accepting that it had to be this way. 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 It had to be this way.
so I just want to take a moment, just a brief moment, to let our listeners know that these approaches are not necessarily like the taking artificial, synthetic. Well, I don't want to use a term that you don't like, but pharmaceutical, something like,
Say fun pills.
okay, fun pills, taking those things, and then living your life through that. Like, it's not necessarily something that I can endorse medically. like
Smoke weed every
and
day.
having these visions that anyway. Maybe I shouldn't interrupt again. I'll hold back.
Well, I think some of these experiences can be they can be incorporated into the scientific framework if approached from a certain perspective. It's the difference between looking through a microscope at amoeba and just smashing the petri dish into your eye and trying to see.
Yeah, both are perfectly like valid ways to do research.
Yeah.
But they're just different applications of the same approach.
One is applied to your eye, one is applied to
Your third eye.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
So I mean, what can we do here to sort of get everyone on the same page? Because it doesn't sound like artist formerly known as Rev J. It doesn't sound like you have any harsh feelings towards the crevasse, do you?
No. In fact, quite the opposite. I feel as though the crevasse has changed me and changed me inside. Like a fresh pair of clothes that you wear on the inside, and now.
Wow, just from meeting him and then you singing that song that was to the tune of Eye of the Tiger, that's what it changed your life?
I don't want to say it didn't, but I don't want to say that it did.
Okay. So you don't want to say, anything at all?
Sometimes the best words are...
Okay.
So wise. Yeah. Wow.
That part I can agree with. Sometimes not speaking is the wisest thing to say.
Yes.
And the crevasse. What are you feeling right now? Do you have hard feelings toward? Do you have any anger or jealousy toward the artist formerly known as Rev J? Now that you remember that you guys shared this really special time.
Leroy Jenkins. Those are the best words to say.
Oh. Leroy
Wow.
Jenkins.
We've just discovered that the artist formerly known as Rev J is Leroy Jenkins, who the guy in the video was talking about, not the person who did that in the video.
I don't want to say that you're wrong, but I don't want to say that you're right.
Wow. And so, the crevasse, does that mean anything
Did
to
that
you?
resonate?
It did. I can honestly say I came to this forest as a challenger, seeking some understanding of what had happened to my buddy Beer, Hole of Raven, and it'd been so long, and I'd wandered and just done so many experiences to try and understand and reconcile. But honestly, now having faced this truth and having seen the visions and understood where Mr. Jenkins is coming from, I think the only thing that I'm looking for now is just to understand where you're going to take him. Where you're going to take him, Leroy. Like, where are you wanting formerly Cameron, formerly Buddy Beer, Hole of Raven, whatever he is now, whatever he perceives himself as now, where do you want him to go?
Where I would want Cameron to go from here is inwardly.
Yes.
And by inwardly, I also mean outwardly, because as within, so is below. And as without, go with forth.
That's a spicy meatball.
And I have been trying to go inwardly, but the angle is really difficult. That's what I've been really struggling with.
Are you talking about urinating?
No, I'm just trying to go inward.
See, you're always going on the inside inwardly at all times. But what also helps is you can triangulate your signal with, you have 3 eyes, all right? So if each one of those eyes is directly connected to your brain, but they all take a different pathway to get there. So if you triangulate those 3 pathways, you can gain a sort of inner map of your system, and travel becomes, now you have your navigational system and it's in check, and now you're clear for takeoff.
Wow.
Yeah. And so two of those eyes are going to be connected mostly through the optic nerves. So
And same with the third, but it's the synaptic nerve.
okay.
Whoa. Yeah, Dr. London, have you even heard of that word?
I don't think so. Anyway, I guess I was trying to offer my little bit of help for this roadmap you're trying to create. So we already have two of the signals that you're describing. So if you want to triangulate, you actually only have to worry about the one, because the signals are already very well mapped in human anatomy for the two eyes. So the third eye, I assume, is, like you only have to find one thing.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. the Crevasse, you had said that you were worried about where the artist formerly known as Rev J was leading me, and he said, inwardly. And then we talked a lot about the triangulation of my third eye. I mean, does that make you a little more comfortable? Does that give you some sound mind?
You see,
that maybe I'm in good hands?
the difficulty I have, Leroy and Cameron, is that I abide by the experience of the physical manifestation of my circular emoji smiley face. I can put that in my mouth. I can put that up my butt. I can know that I'm going to have that experience. The unknown of Leroy Jenkins' approach of the inner journey, it is not road mappable, and that scares me. That scares me because I have relied so heavily on an external and physical manifestation that has allowed me to take that journey. You remember that journey, Cameron? It has a very specific type of path. The inward journey, not so much.
It was very spicy.
That's a spicy meatball.
But at the same time, very cold.
I don't want to keep butting in here, but I can't help but feel like this is maybe not as medically educational as this podcast is meant to be.
Well,
I mean, we're all doctors here.
And, I actually prefer the term meducational.
Oh. Yeah, you ever thought about that, Dr. London?
I don't.
Or is the concept of combining education and medicine just so foreign to you?
Well,
and you hate things that are foreign, so it makes you mad.
I'd like to take it a step further and just call it magical, because meducational seems to be trying to blend the magic and the medicine, and I just like it to be just magic. But that's me. That's not a bash. That's just educational magic. It's all the same.
Well, and guys, you have to stop fighting. You have to stop fighting over the names of these things. So let's everyone calm down. It can be both meducational and magical. The one thing we know that it can't be is just educational, like Dr. London was trying to say.
Well, I was describing medical education, so I just didn't combine words.
Yeah, or describe it as magical either.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I was listening to your podcast earlier, and you were saying some facts, some numbers, like somewhere between, if you're a non-smoker, there's a 35 to 45% chance you're going to get lung cancer anyway. So that's almost a 50-50 chance of you're getting lung cancer regardless if you're a smoker. It sounded like what the advice I was hearing.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, and if you look at the 35%, it also, one thing that, if you think about the larger application, sort of on a macro scale, so you think 35%, you think there's 300 million people in the U.S., and so you're talking about you're close to 100 million people at the 35%, which also leads to 65%, which would be the other 200 million people. And I think if you look at those larger sort of organizations and the situations, if 35% of that I think will really establish.
I wouldn't
not
be
sure.
surprised if those are conservative numbers. It's actually even higher than.
We avoid politics as much as we can on this show.
I mean
apologize.
conservative as in.
Again,
There I go saying
we
it.
just. I know. I
Slip of the tongue.
This is the reason I have my reservations, Cameron. I'm just saying, even just kind of like going there. He went there, and I again, like spiritually, I met him in the forest. We danced around the Monroe tree. We had our vision, but at the end of the day, where is the inner?
You lift up its skirt.
Where I cannot confirm or deny that, but do I really know where that inner journey is taking you? Because if it's politically leaning, it's already playing into the system. I'm just going to say there. Just into the system where we are trying to get away from.
But okay, so what I have a suggestion here that hopefully will make everyone happy. What if we do sort of a joint custody type thing? So what if we do every other weekend? So the first weekend.
You're talking about person to mentor you.
Yes. So on the first weekend of the first weekend and the third weekend of the month, the crevasse, I'm going to follow what you have for me, whatever your spiritual journey is. The emoji pills, the inward and outward and spiritual floating that you often take me on in the parking lot of that Kroger. I want to do that with you in person. I want to see you the first and third weekend of every month. And then on the second and fourth weekend of every month, artist formerly known as Rev J, if I could sleep on your couch, that'd be great. And then, which I know you don't have any possessions, but if I could, if you know of a couch that I could lay on, that'd be great. But then those other 2 weekends, I'll follow your guidance.
Okay, now if we could throw in Easter and Boxing Day, that I could be also your mentor, then we got ourselves a deal.
You have to be able to give up 2 holidays. I mean, the crevasse. Are there any specific holidays you want?
I prefer Halloween because
Didn't think about that.
Because there's lots of bags of goodies that are given out. Because the combination of Beer Buddy and Ravenhole and what we have, like the stories we had to tell together, Cameron, Buddy Beer, Hole of Raven. Remember your beginning.
I feel like that's something that maybe on Halloween could be really special between us. Is sitting around the Halloween campfire and swapping Buddy Beer, swapping emoji pills and catching up,
That's right. And I mean, I'm not possessive. I completely am okay with the spiritual, like, astral projection of Leroy, Rev J, whatever, he can be there. He can be there with us. I just physically, I don't know if I could handle the distortion. And I'm still, again, like, physically, this is why I asked London to give me a diagnosis, because physically, I'm still trying to figure out what is this distortion that I feel.
And obviously, he tried to throw some jargon at you because that's what Dr. London does. So he said, "Oh, you overdosed," and obviously, "Oh, you're going through withdrawals." None of that makes even a lick of sense in this context at all. But I think we've grown a lot today, guys. I think we've squashed some beef.
Yes.
And we've put aside our differences.
We've beefed some squash.
Nope.
That I'll have to fact check. Unfortunately, we can't say anything on this podcast that's inaccurate. We do a lot of fact checking.
Yes.
So I will look into if we beefed some squash, but we can establish that later. We can edit that. DJ Dylan, can we edit that out?
Nope.
Okay.
Can we maybe just swap the 2 words around so it sounds like I was saying, I was agreeing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beef squash. Some beef.
Or you could say squash of the beef, or beef of the squash.
While we're also fact checking here, I should clarify that. So the 35% I was talking about earlier, it's adenocarcinoma, makes up around
You're so hung up on this 35% thing. Dr.
of
London,
all lung cancers.
it's unbelievable.
It doesn't. You should definitely not be smoking. If you are smoking, you should try to quit, and also, go to your doctor. And if you desire to quit, there are medications that can help you to quit. Help take away the craving.
And so that's 35% of our listeners go to the doctor. The other 65%, you're totally fine. Don't worry about it. So 35% of our listeners, I believe that's one person. So whoever you feel that should be, go to the doctor. The other 2 listeners, you're fine.
Okay. Well, I feel like that's a pretty good place to kind of wrap things up, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We've all... I can't help but feel like I wasn't a huge part of the discussion, but maybe you needed this time, Cameron.
You never are.
Right. Okay, so thank you to Crevasse, formerly Ravenhole, for calling in.
The crevasse, I believe.
Thank you for taking my extended call.
Yeah, of course. And I do find it odd that you found a way to call in at all, because as far as I know, Cameron's system is... I don't quite understand it. But also thank you to the artist formerly known as Rev J, now I guess Nameless Spectre.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you to our producer Cameron. Thank you to Digital in the House.
It's the hole of the raven, it's the eye of the crow. I believe I can fly.
It was Cameron's hole. I believe it was Cameron's hole. Because it started with me, and then it led to you, and now I'm fully accepting that it had to be this way. It had to be this way.
I don't want to say that you're wrong, but I don't want to say that you're right.
My name is drlondonsmith.com, and this has been the Jock Doc Podcast.
That's a spicy meatball!
It had to be this way. It had to be this way.
Flower petals surround you, and you take a deep breath. This is bliss. Again, you deeply inhale and find peace in this moment, fighting the urge to realize just how fleeting such a moment is, and that the troubles of this world are waiting on the other side of those few precious seconds. You hear yelling in the distance, and you let out a sigh. Finally, you open your eyes once again to appreciate the beauty of the arboretum, and you drop the machete that you had used to rid so many dumb, delicate flowers of their precious petals. You mentally file that perfect moment away because you are fairly certain that your really cool flower chopping moves, although actually it was pretty impressive, they may also serve to prohibit you from paying future visits to this place. Speaking of impressive moves, don't forget to leave a 5-star review of the Jock Doc podcast, in which you detail your experiences of getting kicked out of, well, all of the arboretums you've been kicked out of. And while you're at it, go ahead and share the Jock Doc podcast with a friend or foe. You can send them a link to your favorite episode, or just send them our handy website, jockdocpodcast.com. And don't forget to take a peek at our posts on social media. We are at Jock Podcast. Thanks for listening.